What is up, guys, and welcome back to another Bojinjin vlog. I hope you're doing good. I'm doing alright. It's supposedly, at the time of recording, it's going to be like a week-long like heat wave as like spring and summer are starting to roll in. Does spring exist anymore? Like, do spring and autumn exist anymore, or has global like warming and climate change completely wiped those two seasons out of the areas of the world that aren't the equator or the poles, right? But anyway, yeah. So if I'm sweating in this video, then yeah, that's the reason. But anyway, so this entry, I wanted to talk about something that is potentially controversial, and as is the case, right? Recently, I've like, I guess, like leaned more in the direction of like controversial things, but like, well, let's get into it first, and I'll give my disclaimer, because if you're doing controversial videos, you should probably do disclaimers so that people don't necessarily misconstrue what you say. But anyway, like, in this video I wanted to talk about something that's relevant to me, and I'm hoping, well, not hoping, but like, potentially could be relevant to you, right? And that is to do with the path of an artist, right? So, I'm an artist, it wasn't until like a year or two ago that I started to really identify myself as an artist. I've been an artist my whole life. It's just that it didn't really come to my consciousness that I could label myself as an artist like until a year or two ago, when I started to really kind of nail what exactly I wanted to do. Also, if it's a bit noisy, like, it shouldn't be too bad, but if it's a bit noisy, it's because I've parked in a weird place where like it's right next to a road, right? But anyway, so cool. Also, I want to keep this entry short, so I'm going to try and because I'm going to do the next few entries in this sitting, so you'll be enjoying this disheveled bow look. Does he wash his hair? Like, for the next few weeks. So I hope you're looking forward to that. Anyway, so cool. nice opening, bow. So cool. Yeah. So, the path of an artist, and it doesn't just, what I'm going to talk about doesn't necessarily pertain only to artists, people who do things in the visual arts, or like film or music, or like writing. It also applies to anyone who's, I guess, undergoing or undertaking, I should say, like some kind of a creative endeavor, right? The bottom line is that, like, if you've chosen to be, if you are a creative person, if you've identified yourself as a creative person, it's like part of the realization comes with another realization, which is like, as much as you would like sometimes to, like, let's say, be a bit more normal, like, it's not a thought that you always have as an artist, because like usually you're just like having so much fun creating, but like sometimes you have the thought of like, because it's hard, right? Like, creativity is kind of different, and it's not very well understood by most people in society, and as such, like, the creative person does not really receive that much support from like the people around them, just simply because people around them don't really kind of get, or they don't really know how to support someone who's creative, right? But like, but that, it comes with the realization that, like, yeah, it's just who you are, it's like, that's really the point at which I realized that I could use the label of artist on myself, is when I realized that, I am an artist. And there's really nothing I can do that can change that. If you're born creative, you're just creative. It's just like extroverts are born extrovert, like scientists are born scientific. It's just really your temperament, and you're born with it, and you just have to live with it, for better or for worse, right? and we try to be optimistic, so for the better. But when you start to kind of go along the path of an artist, you know, some of it is fucking amazing, because you finally get to own who you are, right? And you finally get to express yourself in a way that's authentic to you, and that's amazing, right? However, like, you also discover like parts of it that you didn't expect, that can kind of throw you for a loop / plunge you into the depths of depression, you know, because, you know, it's like, well, being an artist is kind of up in the air unless like you have some kind of some kind of plan of like being scouted, you know, if you're some kind of performance artist, or like, yeah, you know, being scouted by a company, you know, if you're doing something more like, you know, more like kind of like based in like an office or something like that. But like, you know, but like, it's like, you know, if you speak to any of your like non-artistic friends, or like if you were like me and you kind of were headed in a direction that was not necessarily artistic, and I was definitely not headed in a direction that was artistic by any means, right? I did an undergraduate in chemistry, so that gives you an idea as to like my trajectory at one point in my life, right? Completely like not the direction that I'm now moving in, but like, you'll know that like, you know, for non-artistic endeavors, it's like, it's pretty straightforward. It's still complicated in the sense that you have to play this game where like, it's like qualifications and then work experience, and then you have to know people and you have to network, and, you know, even if it's like in a slightly more entrepreneurial sense, you know, which is still creative, right? At least there's like it's been well documented how you get from A to B, right? The variety in terms of like how you achieve that is like staggering, but like, you know, it's like, it's the same principles, right? And you could argue the same with art, but like with arts and, you know, and indeed entrepreneurship, like it's you know, it's kind of by definition like up in the air, because like you're embarking on a career path that's predicated on you like basically plucking things out of thin air and then like making stuff that people are like, oh my god, what the fuck, right? You know, like wowed and inspired and moved, right? And that's what you've chosen for yourself, that's the kind of person that you are, right? Just by your nature, right? And, you know, and basically I want to talk towards that, but like, you know, it'll be in the title, like, you know, specifically what, like, who and what I want to talk about, but like, so I'll give a disclaimer. So basically, okay, I'll give some background first. Like, there's a dude called Jordan Peterson, right? And like, if you follow me, or if you're like in any way kind of an enthusiast of like personal development and like, you know, spirituality and ideas and things like that, you know, he's been on like a bunch of podcasts now, and he's all over the place now. So like, if you're interested in, you know, to any degree in like, you know, personal development and like, you know, ideas and things like that, then like, you probably have heard of him. But in case you don't, like, he's a professor of, I believe like the umbrella thing is psychology, although I could be mistaken. Maybe I should have done some background reading to be exact on that. But like, you know, he's a professor, and he's a very, very interesting individual, and I've been following him a lot like over the past year, really, since he kind of became prolific. Like, you know, I guess as is the case with many things, like, you know, he kind of rose to prominence like from like scandals, right? You know, I'm not going to go into the specifics of that. Like, you know, if you're curious, then like, I invite you to just search his name on YouTube, and you'll find everything you need to know about the guy, right? But like, he has also spawned like, you know, a group of like, or like I should say like, yeah, like, you know, like just like a bunch of like YouTube channels that are dedicated to kind of like, let's say packaging like his material, right? Because he has a lot of material, because he's recorded like, you know, most of his lectures. He has a bunch of podcasts that he's been on, like I said, and like, he's just everywhere, right? And like, you know, there are a couple of channels that kind of dedicate themselves to like kind of packaging his material In the same way that, you know, you see for people like Osho and like Alan Watts and like people of that nature, right? And he has a lecture in which, well, a lecture and like several talks where he talks about the condition of being an artist and, you know, what it means to be creative and the struggles of being a creative person. And like, basically this entry is my response, I guess, to like his, you know, his content surrounding that. And like, I just want to give a disclaimer first and foremost, right? Because like, I just want to say that my purpose in this video is to kind of expand on what he's saying. And, you know, it's not necessarily to kind of, I'm not really disagreeing with him, you know, it's like, basically like, his take on art is that it's fucking hard, basically, you know, and that like, it's a high risk, high reward type of a strategy, and like, you know, like, if anyone was sensible, they would not recommend you do it, right? And like, again, you know, I encourage you to watch his lectures, right, you know, so that you get an idea of what he's saying, if you've not already watched them, right? But I'm guessing that if you're watching this video, you probably have, right? To be honest, like, if you've clicked on this video, then you know who Jordan Peterson is, you know, you're an artist yourself, and you know, and you've heard his take on, like, being an artist and all that stuff, right? And this entry is meant to be an expansion on that, right? Because I feel that even though, like, he touches on very good points, which I'll, you know, kind of briefly summarize in a second, like, I feel that, like, he describes himself as like a pessimist, right? And like, you know, and a lot of what he says is like coming from a more critical mind, right? You know, it's just, I think it's just his style of like, of thinking, you know, like he's just a critical thinker, right? You know, he's a professor after all, you know, in a scientific field. So like, you know, he presents, you know, information in like from a kind of more critical kind of origin, like a mental origin, right? But as such, like, you know, I feel that like perhaps like his take on like being an artist or being a creative person is not as fleshed out as it could be, right? And so like I'm going to offer like a counterbalance, I suppose, to his, you know, his take on being an artist, right? And like, yeah, basically the disclaimer is like, I'm not disagreeing with him, right? Because like, he's right, you know, like what he says is right? So basically what he says about being an artist is like, it's something, being creative in general is something that kind of lies outside of what is kind of like generally known in society, right? Because like the creative process itself is kind of the creative individual delving into the unknown and kind of fishing out of the unknown, like, you know, inspiration and imagery and like, you know, a sense of beauty and stuff like that, right? Showing the world something that like was in the shadows. That's the kind of role of artists and, you know, entrepreneurs and like people who are creative, right? So as such, it's incredibly risky, right? You know, it's incredibly risky because, you know, he's done the research, right? And I haven't, but like based on what he says, you know, most creative people don't succeed statistically, right? You know, most artistic and creative people like fizzle out basically because like there's a lot of them, and by its very nature, creativity is uncertain, and like it's difficult. I mean, it's not difficult to make art, you know, or to be creative. The issue is like being creative in such a way that that kind of endears people to you, like in such a way that like people can kind of like appreciate you and therefore reward you with like financial support basically, right? So like so, you know, that's a very long way of saying like as an artist it's difficult to form an identity and to make money, right? And that's why most artists fizzle out, and like creative people, like entrepreneurs, you know. And he makes this point, and it's true, right? if you think about it, it's like, it's a very painful kind of a truth, but if you think about it, it's like, it kind of makes sense, because it's like, it's really hard, because it's like, it's not the same as like a degree in like in some kind of scientific field, or like some kind of business pursuit that's based on like being employed by someone, because like there's a process to that, right? It's highly competitive, but like the process is documented and known to the extent that you could assign a percentage success rate to like your endeavor, right? So like, if you're applying for a job and you have the qualifications, you can predict, to a reasonable degree of accuracy, like the percentage chance that you'll be successful, in that job, or like in that sector, right? But like when it comes to like artistic pursuits and like entrepreneurship and any other creative pursuit, it's like, well, first of all, like, are you even sure that what you have to offer is marketable, right? And are you like, and like, even if it is, like, are you sure that like you can be better than like like the top artist or top creative person in that sector, right? And there's just like so many factors, that kind of push against you in terms of statistics, that like, Jordan Peterson says, like, any reasonable person will tell you not to do it because it's just too risky, right? However, as he says, like, we artists and like creatives are cursed with creativity, in the sense that like, if we're not creative, we die, right? AKA like we lose our vitality and our will and our raison d'etre, because like we're here to like create and to be artistic and to express ourselves and to solve problems and to provide insights and wisdom and like new ways of looking at things, new ways of doing things. If we don't do that, then we've lost our will to live, basically, right? So like we're kind of stuck, right? I'm a great example of this, because like I did an undergraduate in chemistry, right? I did pretty well academically, right? I got onto a graduate scheme, that could have like supported me for a number of years, right? Or perhaps my entire life, right? But like the thing is, like, it just wasn't for me. So like I didn't switch to artistry because like it was a better move, right? I did it because it's who I am, right? And it took me a while to figure that out, because at first I thought I was just being a selfish, twat, basically. But like, eventually I realized it's because it's who I am. I can't be stuck in a cubicle, like doing like an office job, talking to people about things that I don't care about, and just pretending to be someone I'm not. It's just like, and if you're an artist, if you're a creative type, you're probably the same way. So like, we're kind of blessed and cursed with it, right? So anyway, so, that's his stance on being an artist. It's tough. He wouldn't recommend it from like a reasonable perspective. However, he does say that like, if you're a creative, you probably don't have much of a choice, so you should probably do it, But like he recommends, and this is a good recommendation, that like you should have something that can support you, right? I'm kind of lucky in the sense that like, I have support from family, and also like, there's this thing called the gig economy that popped up like in the past few years, that's really been a godsend to me. Like, if it were not for that, so basically it's a thing where, it's like, for example, you can do food deliveries, or you can do some other delivery, and there's a bunch of companies that do it. So like, if you're struggling with like, how can I do this, like maybe this is an option for you. It's like, you can look up these things, and like basically what it is like, it's self-employed, you schedule yourself in, and then you just do some shifts, and you deliver some stuff usually, or you do a service, and then you get paid for it, right? And like there's no boss, there's no company politics, there's no weird shit that is not necessary. Because I've been in a ton of jobs, right? I've been in like a lot of jobs, and like I just don't like the idea of being in a job. So like this gig economy thing is a real godsend for me. But like his recommendation is that like you find something that can support you while you do your art on the side, and you improve your skills, and you basically like tackle it And then eventually the idea is that, like, you know, that thing will become your primary career once it gains traction, once you get followers, once people start to pay for your art or your service, you know, your business. So that's what he recommends, and like it's good advice, right? Because, like, you know, if you're going to go the raw route, you know, which is like, I'm just gonna throw everything away and just like start doing stuff, it's like, you know, it's admirable. It really is. Like, and like, to be honest, that's kind of how I started. Like, I just quit my graduate scheme, and I went to like a music production school. And really, if it were not for my family, like, I would have drowned. Like, I don't know how I would have managed if it were not for my family, you know. But yeah, so I was stupid at one point, but like now it's like, I realize, you know, like for most of us, we need to be like more sensible, you know, like we can't, you have to at some point put your foot down and be like, this is who I am and I'm going to do it, right? Because the thing is, like, you could like kind of, you could do the other way around and be like complacent and be like kind of sheepish about it, and you could work another 5-10 years in a job you don't like, and by that point, like, you're like, am I even going to do the thing that I like, right? So like, there is an element of like kind of reckless courage where you jump ship and you get to where you need to be, right? However, once you're there, you do have to support yourself, right? So like, yeah, it's a good recommendation, right? However, right, like I said, like, that's an argument from a very kind of like conservative and like pragmatic kind of a mindset, right? You know, and even though this is probably not his intention, like, if you watch his videos about art and like, you know, and you hear what he says about them, yeah, he's right, but like the thing is, like, it can be very demoralizing. It can be very discouraging, particularly if you are depressed, and it's going to happen, right? Let's be real here. Like, if you do art, really, if you do anything, right? It's just that, like, you know, if you do the normal thing, like the normal conservative thing of getting a job, like, maybe you have less like gangster shit to deal with, right? But if you're an artist, there's gangster shit you have to deal with, and most of that comes in the form of depression, right? Because like, there'll be, and I'll talk about things of this nature in future entries, but like, there'll be times when you're comparing yourself to other people and you're like, holy fuck, I am not good enough. I didn't even realize how bad I was compared to other people. And then, like, you know, and obviously those would be offset by other times when you feel terrific about yourself and your decision to do art. But then, like, you know, there'll be other times when things come up and, like, you know, you've got creative blocks, you know, things you implement don't work, and it's just like, and you have to battle with like really, really, really debilitating depression sometimes, right? But like, you get used to it, right? You know, over time. But like, yeah, but you know, something like Jordan Peterson's treatment on art does not help in those times, particularly like because you will be led to those things, because you'll start Googling or YouTubing things like how to succeed as an artist, and you'll find videos like that, and then like, it'll tell you, yeah, basically you don't have much of a good shot, to be honest, but like, good luck anyway. And you're just like, oh, you know. So yeah, so it's, you know, it's a reality check, but it's like a reality check that does not really help, I guess, to like motivate you to pursue art or entrepreneurship or creativity or anything like that. So I wanted to give like kind of a counterbalance to what he said, right? And I said this entry was not supposed to be long, but it's already fucking long, so apologies. Basically, yes, as an artist, as a creative, like, it's more up in the air. There's like, it's harder to predict whether or not you'll succeed, right? Compared to like a traditional job or like a job in a traditional sector, right? However, because of the unpredictability factor of like a creative pursuit, it means that there's actually also like a better chance that you will succeed from some freak fucking like chance, right? Because the thing is that, like, in a traditional job, right, you can predict with, you know, reasonable accuracy like the success rate No, you could even count, like, in a job interview, let's say there's, like, 10 other people in the room besides you. Or 9 other people, let's make it, like, a nice round number, right? So there's 10 people in total. You have a 1 in 10 chance, you know, statistically, that you'll, you know, if there's only, like, assuming there's only one position to be filled there, you have a 1 in 10 chance of getting that job, right? No higher, no less, right? And that's the thing, is that, like, if you compare that to, like, the chance of failure for an artist, which is really hard, which is, like, you know, you could argue it's much higher than, like, a traditional job. You know, yes, you can argue that. However, you could also argue that, like, the chance of you, like, miraculously, like, getting a good job out of nothing, even though it does happen, because, you know, job interviewers have biases, basically, right? And you can kind of work on, like, on your charm and charisma to, like, get you through job interviews, right? It's not necessarily going to make you a better employee, but it'll make you a better, like, job interview right? You know, a person. So you can get through job interviews, right? But, like, you know, competency tests and all that fucking bullshit that I'm glad is in my past. But, like, you know, like, but like, at the same time, it's like, you're not going to suddenly, like, you're not going to get a free job, basically, right? And, like, you know, you could argue, like, you know, you're not going to get, like, free money for doing art, but, like, there's a higher chance in art, conversely, looking at things, right, that, like, you will succeed from some random thing, right? Like, just, like, think, like, even, like, you know, okay, like, if you're working a job, right, you have one form of income usually, and then you can then diversify that income once you've received the income. But your income source is pretty much fixed, right? You're paid by your employer. However, as an artist, right, and as an entrepreneur and as a creative person, like, you have different avenues of, like, potentially, like, getting remuneration basically for your art or your product or whatever it might be, your service, right? And things like donations is a factor. You know, your boss in a job is not going to randomly give you, like, you know, sometimes they toss out, like, fucking bullshit, like, employee, like, incentives, like, oh, if you get this many positive feedbacks from customers, then you get £10 gift vouchers that you can spend at your leisure. Like, and you get shit like that. But, like, your boss is not suddenly going to give you, like, £100 or $100. Right, just out of nowhere, just out of appreciation. But, like, if you're an artist, or if you're, like, an entrepreneur, or, like, someone who, like, does something creative, then there's a chance that someone just appreciates you so much that they just give you money, right? Oh, the other disclaimer I should say is, like, I'm not successful yet. Like, I'm only kind of sharing ideas, right? You know, I'm not successful. Like, I'm far from it. I'm only starting to get serious about, you know, my art, which is music. And so, like, you know, take what I say with a grain of salt. Like, you know, I'm not speaking as an expert. This is just what I think. But, like, yeah, you know, as a creative person, like, you know, yeah, compare it to a regular job. Like, you have more chance that like, people will reward you randomly, really. You know, comparatively speaking, right? You know, and so, like, you never know, right? The thing is, like, yes, it's high risk, high reward, but, like, you know, even though it's true that, like, your chances of success are really, really low in the traditional sense of, like, you know, how can you even define how an artist is successful, right? That's another point, actually, right? So, like, in a traditional job, right? So let me finish that point. So, like, yes, so basically the first point is that, like, you as an artist have, even though, like, it's harder to succeed, it's also easier in some ways because it's high risk, high reward, and it's just, like, it's more unpredictable. That, like, someone just might appreciate what you have so much that they just become, like, a lifelong, like, patron, or they just, like, give you a bunch of money because, like, what you offered was exactly the right thing, exactly the right time for exactly that person, right? So, like, that's one thing, right? The second thing is that, like, as an artist, right, like, if you compare an artist or a creative person to, like, well, more so an artist, right? Because an art is more kind of, more kind of, like, you know, intangible in a sense, right? It's most of the value, right? And that's the point, is that, like, if you're in a job, what you receive from that job is money, right? Because a lot of the times, what you receive from a job is not satisfaction, right? It's not inspiration. It's just money. You're doing this job, right? And you might, the thing is, you might derive some sense of pride from your job. I'm not saying that, like, you don't, right? But, like, in most cases, in normal jobs, you are not there for job satisfaction. You're not even there for recognition, necessarily. You're there for a paycheck, and that's all you're there for, right? But as an artist, right, you get way more intangible benefits from it. You may not get paid as much, right, or at all. Let's be honest, right? Jordan Peterson has a point, right? You might not get paid at all. You might not get paid for a long time, but, like, you get the benefit of, like, inspiration, of feeling like you own yourself, of the joys of self-expression, of getting better at something that you enjoy and that amplifies your ability to self-express, right? And what I said is just a really roundabout way of describing the experience you get when you make something and you're proud of it, or you improve in some way, or, like, you express yourself and you're just so proud of that work of art. It's a different type of pride, right? In work, like traditional work, it's more that you're proud that, like, you can. It's more that you're proud of your managerial skills, right? And of course, like I said, that doesn't apply to all jobs. There are some jobs, like, for example, like maybe some in the medical industry, or, like, even in law, where, like, you have a pride in terms of your knowledge and stuff like that. I'm not saying that you don't, but, like, in the vast majority of jobs and sectors, you might be proud, but you're proud that, like, you can manage yourself and you can manage all of your political, like, interactions with, like, your colleagues and your bosses and stuff like that, right? However, in art, you can, like, it's like a deeper pride, like in something creative. It's a pride that shakes you at your very core of your soul. It's like, you might even cry over it, right? Like, it's like, you might cry over it and you might get really emotional about it, because it's something that you express from a very deep part of yourself, right? So when you make your art, when you create things, like, based on, like, a passion of yours, right? Because there's one thing that creatives, like, regardless of whether you're an artist or an entrepreneur or, like, whatever, right? If you're a creative person, you're passionate. That's one thing that all creative people share. You're also sometimes dispassionate. That's the thing. It's like, creative people are, like, all over the place, right? So, like, this kind of ties into something I talked about last week, last week, where I talked about, like, liberalism versus conservatism. It's like, conservatism, it's the same as emotions, right? I've talked about emotions in this way, where, like, conservatism is, like, when you think of it in a linear sense, you think that conservatives are, like, low risk. They minimize risk, so they're better that way, right? And, like, they're more certain about, like, their victories, right? So, like, they have certainty, and that's what you need, is certainty. So it's better, right? But it's like, yes, but, like, your victories are very small, usually, right? It's very, very miraculous for like a conservative approach to yield, like, some crazy payoff, right? But, like, as a creative person, like, so a conservative person is like this, right? They minimize risk, and they attack certain propositions, right? They don't go for, like, uncertain things, they go for certain things. So it's like this tightening thing. Like, creativity, people who are creative, like, they take the liberal approach, which is like this. Like, it expands, right? So, like, you've got massive risk, which is why, like, they say, like, most artists starve, like, or most artists have it really rough, because it's like, it's not only, this is the thing, right? It's not only that, like, you may not be supported financially for what you do, but it's also, like, you could be, like, so super frustrated, right? Because, like, alongside of the pride that you feel when you make something amazing, how does it feel when you make stuff, when you just cannot make anything, right? We have a name for this, creative block, right? And, like, you just lost your voice, or, like, you just, like, nothing you make or nothing you come up with seems to work, and it's just, like, it's just depression, So, like, it's also, like, psychological, like, fucking pain, right? But, like, you also have the opportunity to, like, make fucking amazing, like get, like, fucking successful as fuck, or like rich as fuck, or like fulfilled as fuck, right? So it's like this versus this, basically, right? So that's point number 2, right? Is like, yeah, well, you know, I just kind of gave like the depressing part of it as well. It's like you can be very depressed, right? You will be, on average, a lot more depressed than like your conservative peers, right? But like, also like when you are rewarded, it is rewarded on a deeper level than just like money or recognition. Like it's also like it's like that stuff is the icing on this lovely cake of like, I am me. This is me. I made this. It's like, if you're a man, it's the closest thing that you have like to like a woman giving birth, right? Because like a woman giving birth is one of the most creative things like in our physical reality, right? So like you get, like as a man, you get something similar to that, and it's like you like it's like you love what you made because it's like it's you, and you gave birth to it, right? So like your rewards run deeper, right? And then lastly, unless I can think of any other points, right, is like, yeah, like yes, the art world is cutthroat, right? I'm sure you know that, right? It's like it's really competitive, right? Because all these artists are trying to get their work out there, right? And there's many different tactics that we all use. You know, we'll try and aim for the right markets. You know, we'll try and like do all kinds of things. You know, to get money, basically, right? And it's competitive as fuck, right? If anything, like if you're in a job, at least you're in a job and you're not necessarily competing, right? You know, unless you fuck up majorly or someone screws you over, you know, or whatever, right? You know, or unforeseen circumstances, right? Like you're safe, you know, you don't have to compete on a daily basis with other artists or other creatives or other entrepreneurs, right? But you have to as a creative, right? It's like nothing, like there's no free meals really. Like there are free meals sometimes, but like but most of the time there isn't, if that makes sense, right? You know, because it's just like, yeah, you might randomly, like people might, like if you make the right decision, or like you're lucky enough that someone who is really, really resonant with what you do comes along and is like, take my money, right? Like, the rest of the time, like, you're going to be like fucking terrified because you're like, I need to keep getting better, well, until you learn to live with it, right? You know, after a while it's not that bad, but like, you know, initially you have to deal with like, you know, the terror of like, oh shit, like I'm always going to be competing all the time, right? However, this is more true of art, I guess, right? But even with like entrepreneurship, which is like the more like conservative side of like, I guess, the creative. Then you could argue that, right? But like, let's say like more traditional, right? Well, yeah, you could even argue that, like, you know what I mean. It's more kind of like logical than like art, which is more like kind of feeling. But they're both creative, right? Is that like there is a higher chance that the people in your industry, even your competitors, are going to be nicer than pretty much any other sector, right? Because why? Because like everyone knows it's hard. Everyone knows it's competitive, right? Everyone's doing it from passion. Everyone's like, and because like the rewards you get, right? And rewards is, you know, the rewards you get is a lagging indicator of like the thing that you got into creativity for in the first place. Despite, aside from the fact that it's your nature, right? It's like, you got into, particularly art, right? Particularly artists, right? Did you get into art for money? Did you get into art for money, right? Because I did. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm going to fucking do that music thing. I'm going to be a millionaire. Fuck no, right? Obviously, like, the goal is to get money. Don't get me wrong, right? We like, the goal is to get money in some form, right? But like, the thing is that like, if you really wanted money that much, that badly, right? If money was so important to you, would you have chosen art, right? The field, you know, like creativity, the field, like where people such as Jordan Peterson tell you, like, you know, I really don't recommend it. You know, it's like, it's kind of a stupid move, right? You know, like, you're risking so much, right, for so little guarantees, right? And it's so competitive. Do you know how many millions of artists are out there trying to make a buck, right? you know? And it's like, yeah, you know? So like, why in the hell, if you are really that fussed about money, would you do art, right? So you're not obviously in it for the money per se, you're in it for, like, the passion, right? Like the soul food, if you will, of like, you know, pursuing creativity and like following your passion and following your heart and all that stuff, right? And so like in a field where like there's basically just people like this, right? You know, yeah, like there might be some crazy shit happening from time to time. You know, that's the other side, is like, you know, because people are so passionate, they might do some crazy dark shit to get ahead or like whatever, right? But like generally speaking, right, you'll find that, you know, in like the creative fields, but you'll also find people who are understanding, right? If you go to someone in a job and like, can you listen to my problems? They might entertain you, but like they're not going to give a shit, right? You know, if it came down to the crunch, like, are they going to like fucking like, are they going to like help you out? They might, honestly, they might, right? But it's like they're doing it out of duty. They're not doing it out of like sympathy, right? It's like the people in our industry have, like, you know, it's like, yeah, like I'm sometimes like, I need to compete, right? And I need to fuck all of these other artists over so I can succeed. But then when you see someone's art, you know, if it's something that like they really like put their heart into, you're like, this guy's awesome, right? You know, like, it's awesome. And also when you think about it, it's just like, that's kind of part of what art is about, is like connecting more deeply, right? And you can connect more deeply to your art, and you can connect more deeply to other people's art, and you can connect more deeply to the people who make that art as well, right? So like, I mean, you could probably find tons of examples of like how like people in like art and like creative sectors are more supportive of each other than like any other traditional sector, because it's not purely about money or competition. You know, it's like, could you get people in law to be supportive of each other, right? You know, could you like cry on like your lawyer, you know, rival's shoulder on a day that you're just feeling a bit inadequate, and you're kind of like, can you go easy on me on this trial or on this case, please? Like, I'm just having a bad day, you know, please just let me off the hook. Fuck no, right? You know, you gotta be like fucking like on point, right? Because like none of these motherfuckers have your back, right? But like in art, right, it's like, even if you're competing with your fellow artists or like your fellow entrepreneurs, like, it's like, hey, you know what, bro? We're in this competition, you know. It's like, it's true, but like, here's a technique I learned, you know, and it really helped, you know, my process, right? You know, and you see this everywhere. It's like people share their techniques. You know, like people do shit for free. Like people do like, you know, collaborate and they do things for other people. It's like, yes, like it's competitive as fuck, right? And you never know like who might fuck you over, like, you know, because it's so competitive and it's so unpredictable and it's more of like a no holds bar type of a thing. But like, you will also find, to a much greater like frequency, like people and communities that are supportive, that get that like art is hard, and like the people who like, and all of the people who like do art, like they're just trying to share a piece of their soul to the world, and then maybe get paid for it, right? So like, it's like, well, you know, maybe if I do this thing for this person, it's going to mean I get less money and they get more money. Maybe if I share my trade secrets with this person, and like, yeah, you know, you have to be smart about it, right? It's like you don't want to give like your shit away for free necessarily, right? But like, you know, sometimes you can, right? And that's the great thing about the artistic world, right? So yeah, so basically, that's that's the side that I felt that, like, you know, Jordan Peterson's argument kind of lacked, right? I'm not saying what he said was wrong. Like, if anything, like what he said was true, but like, you know, I'm just providing the other side of it, right? It's that like, even though there's a ton of shit against you as an artist, right, there's also a ton of shit that like that is amazing, right? Like I said, the chance that like just like random acts of kindness and like just like someone coming out of the woodworks and being like, you are everything that I've searched for, right? You know, your art is everything to me, right? And like, I want you to make more of it. Here's all my money, right? Not all my money, but like, here's like, you know, something that will help you along, you know? That shit could happen to you, right? And like, you have access to way more, like, you know, you can get donations off people, right? You can think of creative ways of getting, you know, and like, getting, you know, things off people. But, and also, like, your value is not, like, centralized only on money. It's also on inspiration, on passion, on, like, the joy of self-expression, on, like, just the joy of getting better at something that you love, you know, the joy of, like, being part of, like, this community that is focused around passion and vision and love and spreading a good message and healing, right? And so, like, you're kind of, like, even though a lot of what you get value-wise from your craft is intangible, right, aka it's not money, right, you get that shit, right? And then like, you know, you can then like hybridize that shit, right, if you see what I mean. And then lastly, like, yeah, like, there's way like more likely chance that the people in your industry are going to be supportive of you, right? Because like we all know how hard it is to be an artist, and it's like, and at the end of the day, it's about the art, it's about the creation, it's about the product, right? It's about like the pursuit of something beautiful, right? And since we're all pursuing something beautiful, like, it's like we kind of want to share that beauty with other people. So like, even though we're all competing, you know, for money and like recognition and shit like that, that's true, but like at the same time, it's like, well, as long as we're all just doing what we're supposed to do, like, why not support each other, you know? Why not, like, you know, give a shout out to this artist friend, or like, you know, help, you know, give like a technique that you've learned to, like, you know, the people who follow you, you know, that kind of thing, right? It's just like, it's an environment where that is way more likely to occur, right? So cool. Anyway, so that's that. Basically, like, I'm hoping that this entry kind of gives you a bit of hope if you're an artist yourself, because, like, you know, it's hard, right? Like, and, you know, when you watch stuff that, like, you know, is true but isn't necessarily encouraging, it can be hard. But, like, you know, I'm hoping that, like, basically me sharing my perspective will give you, like, renewed hope. There is hope, right? It's like, yes, you don't know what's going to happen as an artist, right? But, like, if you just stay true to your art, whether that be actual art or if it be like some kind of entrepreneurial pursuit, right? As long as you stay true to it, aka you keep doing it. You have to keep doing it, right? You can't be lazy. That's one thing that, like, goes for anything, like, particularly creativity. Like, you can't be lazy, right? You can take breaks. You don't have to burn yourself out. You can, like, because you need breaks, you need inspiration. Like, set a schedule. You know, that's another thing that Jordan Peterson recommends, which I recommend also, is like make basically organize your life in such a way that you can get what you need done, and you can, like, do the things that you really enjoy, which will then feed you, and it becomes like this kind of positive feedback loop, right? If that's even the right way of describing it, but, like, you know what I mean. But yeah, so, you know, keep going. You know, it's like, as long as you believe in your art, someone else will at some point, right? And it's like, yeah, you may not be rich. I don't know if I'll ever be rich, but, like, you can definitely make a living out of it, right? And, like, it's just that, like, well, people will always, like, kind of, like, bet against you until you do that, because it's like, the problem is, like, there's no way for them to predict whether, with any reasonable degree of accuracy, how likely it is you're going to succeed, if you're even going to succeed at all, right? So you have to kind of, like, be creative and, like, believe in your art, believe in your craft, believe in your ideas, and just put them out there, and then just, like, figure it out as you go along, because you'll find other ways of, like, monetizing your work. You'll find other ways of connecting with people. You'll find other ways of, like, packaging your art, or, like, new ways of making your art, you know. It's like, it's an ongoing process, but, like, it's all contingent on you continuing to do your art, basically, and to continuing to commit to creativity, right? If you're creative, own it. You know, you have to. You know, otherwise you'll be unhappy, or you will fail, basically, right? So, like, the one thing I will say to you is the only chance that you have of succeeding is if you keep working your art, right? And trust me, that's fucking, It's terrible, I know. Sometimes you don't feel like making art. Sometimes you're like, oh, why must I do this? You know, I'm not inspired. The idea's not coming. Oh, like, so much pressure. But it's like, if that happens, find a way to make it fun. I'm sure that if you know, you will find a way to make your art fun again. Just think of something that, you know, like for me, for example, in music, right? I just start playing random shit. You know, and like it's probably not original and it's probably not very good, but like eventually, like, I'm just messing around and I start having fun again, right? I'm not thinking, oh shit, I need to finish this thing by next week, and I do, right? And I've set that deadline for myself, but like when I lose inspiration, like, I'm just like, okay, I'll take a break and then I'll come back and I'll do something that makes it fun, and then like that's the challenge. Basically, it's a challenge, but it's like worthwhile because it will be a game changer for you. If you can find ways to like kind of like sneak fun into your process, you're set for life, right? And trust me, when you're in that mood, and like, you know, you won't always be, but when you're in that mood of like, you know, I'm so glad I'm doing what I love, right? Then you'll be like, I can do this for the rest of my fucking life, right? Doesn't mean I'm gonna, like, okay, again, it doesn't mean like I'm gonna do this thing only, but like, you know, if this means I do like an hour or two's work a day, like with the odd break, like over the weekend or something, for the rest of my life, I can fucking do that. Because it's fun, and it's fulfilling, and like, I wouldn't have it any other way. So cool. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any comments or any questions or anything of the like, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, next week, I think I'm also going to be talking about something controversial. We'll see. But cool. Until next time, guys, I hope that was helpful, and I hope you will keep going and, you know, believe in the heart of the cards and you'll do fine. And by heart of the cards, I mean the heart of your art, right? So cool. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, stay passionate, stay real, and stay you. Peace out.